experience burnout over Christmas period.
What is burnout?
You can be the employee and experience burnout to achieve more and higher and better. It's very intimidating but very exciting at the same time. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Great. Welcome to the Business Podcast. This is our first episode. The Business Podcast is basically a series dedicated for business owners to help them become more robust, profitable, and confident. I would like to welcome Elena Mesky, the founder and CEO of Elena Mesky & Co., 2 times international best-selling author, business coach, financial advisor of multiple businesses, and NLP Masters practitioner. Elena is also the host of the Business Podcast, and she'll be taking over after the pilot episode. So welcome, Elena.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for supporting me on launching this podcast. It's very intimidating, but very exciting at the same time. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Great. So in this episode, we're going basically to discuss a very common topic in the world of business, and it's actually burnout. It's experienced by many CEOs and very top earning professionals in the different industries. So my question is, for individuals who are not too familiar with the topic, what is burnout?
Burnout is the state of mind when the individual who contributed too much of its time and energy, they experience some thoughts or desire, or another way, they don't experience any thoughts of desire to keep going and proceed with the plan and idea. Very common thing indeed. Regardless what you do, you don't have to be a business owner to experience the burnout. You can be the employee and experience burnout if you don't have support around you. You can be a housewife and feel a burnout when you don't feel enough praise, or if you don't have the right balance on the things you do for others and the things you do for yourself. So that's why the burnout is a very, very hot topic nowadays, especially since we have so much pressure from everywhere, from every cup singing that you have to do this, you have to do that. And at the end of the day, we completely forget what we want for ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, you've worked with business owners for over 15 years now, and you're also a business owner yourself. So why do you think the business owner specifically experiences burnout?
I think our passion as a business owners leads us to having this burnout because we are perfectionists and we're driving ourselves crazy to achieve more and higher and better, and we're completely losing the whole picture. I like to look at it as the Japanese way of looking at the situation. There is no destination, enjoy the path. And once you start repeating it for yourself, you actually see the perspective changes, and finally it happens and you're starting to live in the moment rather than living in the future. So enjoy the past, whatever you do, and that would be the best way to avoid the burnout. And if you don't like what you do, then think, why don't you like? You either have an option and review and see why don't you like it. Maybe you just looking at it from the different perspective, or maybe you want to change the activities and you just don't like it and choose what you want to do. So it's really depending on the personal perspective at the things.
Okay, that's interesting. And like, you've obviously worked with business owners from multiple industries, and over the years, have you spotted the burnout symptom prevalent in business owners from some industries more than others?
I heard I've been working with many industries indeed. I'm also married to a dentist, so I happen to see the other industry in a very close distance. There is a saying that, and there is a common concept that people in dentistry and in accountancy they experience burnout over Christmas period. Because it's very common that the medical profession, they will be working through the whole year, and then when Christmas holiday experience, this is when their body will give up and let the guard down. And there are many dentists who fall sick over Christmas.
Wow.
To be honest, accountants, they also very happy people working through Christmas period, because obviously we have the self-assessment deadline, 31st of January. So working hard through whole January, and then having a time off in February, that is a very common pattern in the industry. I'm sure that this seasonality does work when we push ourselves more. That's why I like to, whenever we work with business owners, we like to understand the seasonality of their business. And once you understand the seasonality, this will help you to set up the goals, so you don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you historically or seasonally you have more pressure during particular period, maybe a good idea not to set up too ambitious goals for that particular period, so you don't have a double pressure. And sometimes that work. Another strategy would be is to overcome it by continuously have different interests outside of work. So to avoid the burnout, if you have continuous interest, what ignite you, and you can switch the mentality. This is my work mentality, and I'm excited about it. And this is my hobby mentality, or this is my family, where I really dive deep into the details and enjoy the parenthood, or cooking, or drawing, or something. And that will switch between mentality, will really help your brain to relax and go in different dimensions.
I think that's pretty reasonable and very applicable. Amazing. So my next question is, so why do you think more people are now speaking up about it? I feel like maybe previously, a few years back, it's kind of like a taboo subject, everyone wants to appear as the successful, overachiever, but now people are stopping and they're saying, okay, I'm feeling burnout. So why do you think people are sharing now?
That's a good observation. I think once we went into lockdown with the COVID and pandemic and all that, and we had a level of emotional and wellness, health wellness situation, when people started, after feeling isolated, a lot of psychological issues started to come out. We had a very good encouragement from the social media, from the government, that if you do experience any difficulties, let's talk about it. So I think this is what boosted the audience and people be open about it. In psychology, there is a very common term that once you label your emotion, or once you state your emotion, like that I am angry, it helps your brain to overcome that feeling. So that is one of the good solution if you want to feel calmer and you feel stress, is not to hide that feeling, but in effect state that I feel stressed. And this is when your brain and body reconcile that emotion, and your stress suddenly starting to goes down. So I think the positive thing is there are social media and all this marketing. We went on such a big upscale, and a lot of life coaches and business coaches, they changing their marketing strategy, and they attract people by talking about all these subjects, and that of course helping other people to open up and go with that. Sometimes it goes to the extreme. I remember the trend in LinkedIn when people were shooting themselves with tears and crying about it, and then they would mention and write some heartbreaking posts about it, which is also very therapeutic, isn't it? You do have to have courage to speak up and share something. And some people try to make jokes of it. I do remember very well the video of the guy having tears, and he's like, I'm having tears. And it's not because I'm heartbroken, it's because I had very hot chicken, something. And so just welcome all sorts of emotions, and that will help you to overcome it.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking up is a very huge step, you know. It can be like a very simple thing to do, but it can be a very big solution. Okay, moving forward. So what about you? Like, as a business owner, you've been doing this for a while, you have so much experience. Have you ever experienced burnout? And how did you identify it? And most importantly, how did you address it?
I think my biggest growth happened when I experienced a big drama in my life, and this is when when my business tripled in size, when I had a personal drama, and I went into mentality going away rather than dealing with what happened. I was trying to forget about it and actually boost myself into the business. This is when the team build-up started, renting the office and doing more marketing and speak about it. And that without living through the dramatic events of your life and not dedicating time to actually absorb and give yourself opportunity to overcome it, that can lead to the burnout as well, because you just, so to say, closing the wardrobe with this dark secret in your life, and you pretending nothing happened. And one way or another, your brain will trigger that event to haunt you. So the best way is, of course, to handle it, to speak with the counseling, to start something. And there's a very low energy involving exercise is keeping a diary.
Oh, wow.
So working pretty much the same thing. You label your emotion, you're already living through that emotion, and that emotion releases from your body. And keeping a diary works in exactly the same way.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I've been thinking about doing a journal. I mean, do you think it's like kind of hard to commit to journaling every day? Like, do you set up a time for it, for those people who are like me, who like start a journal and then like 3 days later they don't do it anymore? So like, do you think like making time for it in the morning or evening?
There are multiple ways of set up a new habit. There is a very good book called Atomic Habits, I think by James Clear. I don't remember the name exactly. Okay. We can do all the links in the bottom of the podcast, so whoever interested, they would have a look. And I remember very well one of the strategy which called habit stacking, which means you identify a habit you have, and then you add a new habit to it. So for example, you have a routine every evening, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you having a cup of tea. So when you love that habit, and that habit have a positive impact on your life, you like it, you want to keep it. So you add in a journaling to that habit. So you know that having a cup of tea and having a journal and a pen on the side, that will merge everything together. So by having a cup of tea, you can write down a couple of things what you're grateful for the day, and this is how it will trigger in your brain within time. There is also another question, like how many days you have to follow the pattern of activity to form a habit, which I find is a little bit complicated, because in that case, you don't follow by days, you follow by how many times you have repeated it. Because you could say you repeat the type of activity for 30 days and it will stuck. But if you're doing it only once a day, it means you're going to repeat the activity for 30 times.
Mm-hmm.
But if you repeat the activity twice a day, then you repeat the activity for 60 times in that time of spin. So it will sit better. So it does not go within the timing. It follows the repetition, how many repetitions you have during the day. So I suggest you do the journaling. Journaling is lovely. And then the journaling is also good because when you do the journaling, you have the point where you can go back and review what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, really a good opportunity to build up that self-awareness.
Absolutely. I will start journaling with my coffee then, every morning. So you just shared with us a bunch of tips on how to adopt new habits and basically the right way to form a habit. And I want to move on to the next question related to experiencing burnout and basically ignoring it and not trying to form positive habits around addressing burnout. So, like, what do you think usually happens eventually to the business owner when they ignore the symptoms of burnout?
That's what I had in one of my cases with a business owner. We have a client who is very determined and driven and very goal orientated, and he did not have the balance, and he would be in the mentality that he need to push. So very, very common attitude and approach, which is not bad but did not serve well. So at some point in time he was admitted to the hospital straight from the boardroom when the doctors done the assessment. They put the diagnosis that he had the cortisol fatigue. So in other words, his body was operating in the fight or flight response all the time, and his body was producing so much cortisol in response to all that stress he was experiencing that his body could not cope anymore. So even no matter how much stress hormones was producing, his body stopped reacting to that. And he was advised by doctors that he can't continue working, and it was very close to the, how does it call, the heartbreak, the
heart attack.
The heart attack,
Wow.
yeah, very close to heart attack. They thought it is a heart attack, but thankfully it was just a cortisol fatigue, which had very similar symptoms. So he had to go under, so to say, house arrest, home, admitted to home, rested, and he was on the path to recovery. He had to have someone to look after his business, and him and his wife, they both have a business, different directions. And she stepped in to be the general manager and oversee the business. And this is actually the very interesting story, not about the burnout, but about the perspective of how running the business. His business doubled in size when he was recovering from the cortisol fatigue, from this burnout thing. And the reason being because his wife, she had a very good managerial skills. She was running her own business, but she did not know the nitty-gritty and particular things of his particular business. And she would not be able to run it on a deeper operational level, like he was controlling every stage of the production and every stage of the marketing and every stage of the quality control and everything. And she was just overseeing or orchestrating the process. So when she stepped in and started to run the business, she would run the board meeting, and she would be comfortable to ask people directly, what is your job description? And the person will reply, my job description is to prepare the marketing strategy and do ABC. And she would ask the question, what is the end result? What are you aiming for? And they would say, I'm aiming for increasing the number of leads and delivering and handling. And then she would clearly see that what the person would deliver, that they are not working towards that goal. They're working on maybe handling the leads themselves instead of passing it to the sales department. And she would call them to keep in the frame of the job activity what they meant to be doing. So she in fact has put a lot of order into the business processes, and instead of going into the operational level because she simply could not handle it, she was just observing and holding people accountable to the processes they have to run. And in fact, the business made bigger growth, much better performance during that period. And then the business owner returned and come back and started to taking over of the business. So yeah, that's the story. So everything happened for the reason, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's very valuable, and I think it's eye-opening to business owners, and hopefully that will help them realize that you don't have to be a part of every single process in the business. That's great. Speaking of professionals in the industry, basically you're a financial professional, you're a certified accountant and tax advisor. And how often have you seen clients facing burnout because of financial related issues in their business?
I think the financial related business is the first, it's the most critical subject while the business owner will experience burnout. I actually explored this area when I was writing my book, Rewire4Success. And effectively what happened, this is a direct path of the business owner to the way of the burnout. Because effectively what's happening when the business owner does not prioritize their financial needs and their personal needs, personal financial needs, and they're looking after everybody in their business, they're looking after the employees being paid, they're looking after suppliers being paid and everyone, and then they try to survive on whatever left after they paid everyone else. Somehow, there are multiple explanations, there are financial explanations, there are budget explanations why that is happening, but everything proves the same point. The business owner when the business owner doesn't get enough from their business, they start into feeling anxious and bad and demotivating to keep running their business.
Absolutely.
That's why what we're doing when we're starting working with any business owners, we're starting from the business owner to identify what are their important personal financial needs, how that needs to be made and how that needs to be met. And we starting building the business budget based on that, because this is a business budget to help the business owner to look after themselves, and after that would be the break-even point. And after that core element, we will build up on top. Then if the business owner would like to start hiring people, they will create the budget for that, and that would be on top of that. But the business owner need will be the core, the absolute necessity in the center of the business. And then suddenly everything's starting to make sense. I'm a strong believer for the budget, and that any business, you need to have a budget in place in order to determine the business goals. There is also another exercise which called decomposition. This is when you're going from the big vision into the small elements, and you then extrapolating your business goal, and you're going back and forth, which is very, very exciting, and most of the time it is eye-opening for the business owners. And I love doing the personal sessions with business owners, so we can get more details and go into the nitty-gritty of the way business is building and building their products and building the business itself. And it also has a lot of insights for the business owner.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Um, Amazing. So, last question. Besides reaching out to professional support, for example, for the mental well-being when a person is experiencing burnout, what changes can a business owner make within their business that would ensure they wouldn't experience burnout again? You mentioned a lot of helpful tips throughout, but can you like sum up like three of them?
Sum up three of them that would be challenging, but let's try.
Okay.
First of all, is to identify that the business owner need at the particular moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel something does not make sense, you're losing the motivation, you don't light up when you hear your alarm clock, and you don't have this feeling, jump out of bed, go and do it, then you have to sit down and write down the top 3 goals you want to get from your business. The next thing you need to do, I would think, is to, in a distant future, let's say 3 months, plan a holiday which will be your big, bold dream holiday where you want to go, and it will drive your motivation up. Because most of the time, it is not the event which makes us happy, it's the anticipation of the event which makes us happy.
True.
Looking, Dima is nodding her head,
Yeah.
being pregnant and away in 3 months.
Yeah.
So that's why booking or planning it shouldn't be something big and expensive and long. It can be the dedicated city trip,
Yes.
or you can go to the day spa or something. But absolutely, if you have something to look forward, it's proven by the statistic, by the multiple exercises being done by different professions. When you have something to look forward to, it will drive your motivation. And another thing is to review your daily habits, how you do things, and try to do the list of what would you like stop doing in your business, and keep it up. So when you start paying attention, do you do too much in your business? What would you like to stop doing in your business? Would you like stop micromanaging? Would you like stop reviewing the post? Are you able to delegate it to other member of the team? Would you like to keep reviewing your emails, or do you want to delegate it to your personal assistant? So start offloading the task what you do, and gradually build up to the delegation skills. And for the business owners who are just starting up and who is doing everything themselves, another trick I found very useful is to start work with a personal assistant. When you have a personal assistant, and it does not have to be full-time employee or to have any solid commitment, you can have the person as a virtual assistant, and there are many opportunities and options how to work, which will be on the budget. But as soon as you start to have the personal assistant in your life, you start to think a little bit in a different dimension. You're starting to think what else you can delegate to another person, and you start to segregate. Is this task is too easy for me to handle and can be delegated, or is this task is important enough? So just put yourself in this duality when you can segregate in task between easy but necessary, can be delegated, important and urgent, and it will be delegated myself. And this is when the shift's happening.
I mean, these are some golden tips. I hope people were taking notes. Thank you, Elena, for sharing a lot of helpful tips for business owners on the first episode of the Business Podcast. And I just want to point out that you run an Instagram Live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. at Lena_Meski to discuss goal setting with business owners. I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode, and they can join you every Tuesday. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dima. Business podcast is run specifically for business owners, so for people who want to take a new adventure, new business plan. And we will be running it. We have different guest lineup. We have very interesting agenda. So I think you'll definitely benefit if you listen to it and you join us with that.
Absolutely, I'll be there. Thank you.